The United States launched a full-scale invasion of Kiska Island, expecting a hard and costly battle. Yet almost immediately, as troops moved forward through thick fog, where nothing could be clearly seen or confirmed, confusion started to spread. Shots were fired into empty space, and men began to fall without ever finding anyone to fight. From the first moments on the ground, something did not match what had been planned. Not because the situation was unclear, but because it was unfolding in a way that did not fit what they had prepared for. As the advance continued without the resistance they expected, slowly opening a gap between expectation and reality that kept getting harder to ignore. Kiska, a remote and cold island in the Aleutian chain, had already shown it could not be ignored after being taken before, and after the costly fight on Atu, there was no intention of taking risks or leaving anything to chance. So the response was built around size and control, with thousands of troops assigned to the landing, ships positioned offshore, and air support already part of the plan, all based on one clear idea that the enemy would still be there. Every movement, from the beaches to the inland advance, was planned around the expectation of contact. Yet, as soldiers kept moving deeper into the island without finding a clear enemy, the operation started to move in a direction it was never built to handle. Unknown to them, something had already changed on the island weeks earlier, and no one knew it. Nothing in that preparation allowed for absence, hesitation, or doubt, because everything had been built for a battle that, step by step, was failing to appear. Everything pointed to a hard, costly battle. The landing on Kiska Island began under control. That control depended on seeing what was in front of you, and in the fog that covered the island, that condition disappeared before the first movements could even settle. As troops moved inland, they expected contact at any moment, yet none came, and the absence did not feel safe. It felt wrong, as if something that should have happened was not happening. Visibility collapsed to the point where distance could not be judged. Shapes formed and vanished without warning, and movement ahead could not be confirmed before a decision had to be made. At times, figures appeared in the fog, and weapons came up in the same instant. Not because the target was clear, but because waiting felt more dangerous than acting. And in one moment, movement was identified ahead, and weapons were already being aligned before anyone could confirm whether it was actually there. Units advanced along planned routes, but those routes depended on timing and spacing that the fog was already breaking, causing positions to overlap and movement to interfere in ways that were never intended. The longer they moved without contact, the less it felt like a delay, and the more it felt like something missing. But without knowing what that missing part was, every decision carried more risk than the one before. They kept moving forward because the plan demanded it, even as what they were experiencing no longer matched what they had prepared for. And with each step deeper into the island, that gap became harder to ignore. By that point, the danger was no longer just where the enemy might be, but in the growing risk of reacting to something that was not there. And once that reaction started, it would not be possible to control it. Something about the island was no longer just unclear, it was unstable. As units pushed deeper into Kiska Island, the first positions they expected to fight through were found completely empty, with defensive lines intact and no one there to use them. At first, those spaces were approached with caution, as if the enemy had just stepped away or shifted position. But as more ground was covered and the same pattern repeated, that explanation began to break down. Equipment was still in place, paths showed recent movement, and everything suggested presence. Yet nothing responded, creating a situation where what they were seeing pointed to contact, but nothing confirmed it. The island did not feel abandoned. It felt interrupted, as if something had been there not long before and had left without warning, leaving behind just enough to suggest activity, but not enough to explain it. In one position, soldiers moved in expecting resistance, only to find everything ready for a fight, and no one there, forcing them to stop, not because of danger, but because nothing mad is sensed. Then, without warning, an explosion broke the silence, not from enemy fire, but from something already there, turning empty ground into something that could still cause damage. After that, the absence stopped feeling empty and started feeling active, because even without an enemy, the island could still react, and every step forward carried the risk of triggering something that had been left behind. The longer it continued, the harder it became to treat it as a delay, because the absence was no longer just confusing, it was dangerous in a way no one had prepared for. They kept moving forward because the plan demanded it, but the way they had prepared to fight no longer matched what they were actually seeing, and with each new position found empty, the situation became less clear and more unstable. Something had been there, and the danger had stayed behind. By the time units moved deeper into Kiska Island, the absence was no longer just confusing. It was already changing how they reacted, because every sound and every shadow had to be judged without clear sight. Then it happened. A burst of fire broke through the fog, aimed at something no one could clearly see, and seconds later, fire came back from another direction, not because an enemy had attacked, but because someone else reacted to what they thought was a threat. In another position, movement was spotted ahead, and weapons came up instantly, shots fired before anything could be confirmed, turning uncertainty into contact in just a few seconds. Men dropped, others fired back into the fog, and positions shifted without anyone knowing who they were firing at. The fog did not stop it. It carried it. Sound spread faster than understanding. And one reaction led to another, until separate moments began to connect, creating a fight that no one had planned and no one fully understood. Island was still empty, but the fight was real. And once it started, no one knew who they were fighting or how to stop it. By the end of the operation, Kiska Island was fully under control, and every position that had been expected to fight had been taken without organized resistance. The island had been secured, but not in the way anyone had planned. There had been no enemy force waiting, no battle to win, and no moment where the operation faced what it had prepared for. The island had been empty, but the outcome was not. Even without an enemy, the danger had already done its work. The damage had already been done. Everything had been built for a battle, but the battle had never come. Kiska had been taken and never fought.